Okay, so this is the point in digital media where we're going to start kind of transitioning from still photography to film and video and movement and that kind of stuff, okay? The 5x5 film is something that is actually taught, I would say, fairly frequently in other kind of like film classes and film schools and things like that. So this isn't a project that like I'm just creating off the top of my head, okay? And what's cool about it is that it's pretty compact. It's, I don't want to say it's easy, but it is minimal as far as lots of learning with a short amount of actual product. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's why it's totally possible, I think, that you guys could finish 2 of them, could just knock them out next week in 4 days, pretty, I use the term easily, cautiously, but fairly easily and simply without a lot of process, okay? The idea is it's each 5x5 film, okay, you're gonna create 2, right? Each one is 5 clips, 5 seconds each, so it's literally like a 25-second film, okay? And all the whole goal of the whole thing is just to tell a story, and I put in there kind of or a situation, because it's not a documentary. It's not like you're providing information about stuff. We'll have other projects that are going to be more kind of that alley. But you can tell the flavor of something. You can like give details about a situation in order to kind of set a scene, okay? This will make a lot more sense once you see the examples. I realize I'm not wording it all that well. But it's really kind of a no-frills approach to filming, okay? So the test clips that you guys have done already should be the exact same process as what you're going to use to film these 5-second clips, with the exception that with your test clips you were just like, you know, aiming at whatever, and with your 5x5 clips you guys are going to put a lot more thought into what you're actually filming and how you're filming it. So you're going to think about things like compositional techniques, you're going to think about things like you know, using the lighting that you have to your advantage, that kind of thing, okay? So I will share this PowerPoint with you if that helps. I put some examples in here. You're going to see that there's a real variety of strengths and weaknesses throughout these examples, okay? So let's just take a look at a couple and see what you guys can observe, okay? This is supposed to be kind of like a no-frills kind of video, like I said. So just straight 5 clips, 5 seconds each, no extra effects, no extra transitions, no extra like voiceovers or sound or anything. It's just whatever sound is naturally occurring with that clip, and then you put them together. Okay, so what do you notice? What?
Boring.
Boring? How come?
I don't know, there's nothing really like exciting.
It's not something that really grabs your attention about it?
I don't like a climax.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Flight 13.
There isn't like a heightening of,
Yeah.
of action that's happening there? Do you think that's the point?
Yeah, you're in the launch.
What's the content here,
That's so
right?
exciting in there.
Okay, and that's exactly what's cool about a 5x5 is that you can communicate something very quickly and very easily that captures the feel of that environment. So that's why I said like tell a story or a situation, because did a story actually happen? There isn't really like a plot, right? And there isn't supposed to be with this kind of assignment, but the idea is that you do get the, like I said, the flavor of what's going on. You feel the situation and the environment in those details, okay? Now, is that the strongest example? I agree with you. No, it's not, right? It's not something that you feel moved by. It's not something that you're probably going to remember once you walk out of this classroom, right? Let's look at this one. You guys are going to put a little title slide on here like this. I'll give you that information after you kind of have it all in there. We can add it in. So what are they suggesting? There's a little bit more of a plot happening here, right? What's the story here? Let me ask it more simply. What happened in this video?
He spun on a chair.
You spun on a chair, and then
Got off the chair.
he was not in the chair,
Dumb.
right? So what is it suggesting?
He just,
He what?
he's dizzy.
He's dizzy? Yep. What
I
else?
feel like he didn't have too much fun doing it. He was kind of like, and then got off. You know, like he didn't look like he was having fun swimming like in a chair.
Well, that's interesting. So you're kind of seeing it, you're perceiving it as like the chair spinning didn't live up to his expectations.
Like a kid had
and he was like,
kids
all right,
fun in the
enough,
chair. They'd
done.
be all like, woo, and then he was like, oh, well.
So he
got
just
off.
left.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Did anybody else see it differently? I saw it as like he fell. Like he got dizzy and like fell out of the chair. That was kind of how I saw it. So see the kind of stuff that you can suggest, okay? I also like this project because you can look at a bunch of them in a short amount of time. They don't take a lot of time investment to see. There's like extra credits and stuff on some of them. What do you think about that one? What's the impression for the audience? Did you guys catch the title? How do you feel after seeing that?
Peaceful.
Peaceful? Calm? Chill? Anybody?
What was the title of it?
Harmony.
Peaceful.
Relax.
Relaxed. Very good. Right? How did the filmmaker show that? How did the filmmaker convey that sense of relaxation, chill, peace, stuff like that?
Grass, when he laid down on the grass, it was like, and then,
Laying on
yeah.
the grass. Yep. How about that camera angle where it was kind of all you could see was grass, right? No clutter in the background, no extra stuff going on. Made sure it was a quiet area. You could hear, right, that it was quiet. So sound is going to be something that you're going to have to start thinking about. Okay. Other, how about like how it showed the angle of the person laying in the grass, and then the next one was what he sees, right, with the sky. So switching your angles like that, you're going to be thinking about not just being the photographer, but what does that subject see, and can you portray that
Kind of
to your
puts
audience?
you in like their place.
Puts
So
you in their
kind
place.
of have like more of a heightened feeling. You know,
Mhm.
like you feel like, oh, I'm looking at the sky right now.
Exactly. Okay? And film does that in a way that still photography doesn't, because it's a series of stuff, right? It's not just one thing. So you don't have to tell a story with one whole thing. It's about telling your story with the sequence of things. So it's called complexity. I found a couple called complexity, so I think that was for an assignment that was like the topic they were given. I tried to download these in advance and it wouldn't let me, so I did my due diligence to prevent this. What do you notice in these clips? Compositional techniques, anyone?
Leading lines.
Leading lines.
Bird's eye, worm's eye.
You saw bird's eye, worm's eye in the other ones, for sure. Those are like extreme bird's eye, worm's eye, right? Almost perpendicular to the ground. All right, well, we'll come back to that. Something that I thought was interesting, in the end, I don't want to like spoil the surprise, but she gets her mail out of her little mailbox, and then she reads it, and it was like a downward angle looking up at her, so you could see her facial expression while she's like opening the letter, and then I don't know if it was the very next shot or somewhere they end with. You see the recycling bin, and then you see her kind of go like this, and she's like releasing like torn up pieces of paper. So there's kind of like a little twist at the end, okay? And some of these have that little twist. The swivel one is supposed to be like a funny twist at the end, like he either fell out of the chair or gave up or whatever. And some of them clearly don't, like the harmony one was just kind of pretty consistent all the way through, right? So the things that you're going to consider when you're kind of designing for this is what story can you tell, okay? Do you want it to be funny? Do you want it to be serious? Do you want it to be something that just makes you feel a certain way, like calming? Or I could totally see this being something you could use to like pep people up or like get their energy going or motivate someone. Should your clips flow or contrast, okay? So should they, like the harmony one for example, they were pretty similar, right? They were very close up, calm sounds, very closely related clips. But at the same time, I could also see you using this for contrasting two things. So like one of the ideas I had was like to convey the idea or the story of like a sick day, like taking a sick day from school. So contrasting clips of like really busy hallways with like people really crowded, like the hustle and bustle, whatever, and then the next clip would be like somebody sitting at home with like a remote, like watching daytime TV, like super quiet in the house, right? And then go back to like Phi Ed class or like a big class situation where they're like doing an activity that's louder, and then going back to like now they've fallen asleep, right? And the remote's like hanging down. Okay, so you can kind of use that flow either way. Okay, does that make sense? What compositional techniques can you use? Okay, you have 5 clips to think about for each one, so what is the best way that you can communicate that? Do you want to have your compositional techniques be similar? okay? Like the flow, think back to the harmony one where it was all pretty close up, they were pretty centered, okay? Or do you want those compositional techniques to change? Do you want to feel like you're watching the viewer at one point and then you're taking the viewer's perspective, or you're watching the subject at one point, you're taking the subject's perspective at another point, okay? Not the highest priority right now, but I do want you to think about how you're going to control the light. Do I expect you to be like adding extra light into the situation at this point? No, we're not. No, we're not there at all, okay? But you can control things like if you're outside, are you facing into the sun so the light's falling on your face, or are you facing away from the sun so that you're backlit and your face is in shadow? Like those are things that you can control pretty easily just by how you kind of frame and how you set up your shot. Does that make sense? Okay. And then what's the tone that you want to show? Is it funny? Is it serious? Is it going to make people think? Is it going to be relaxing? Is it going to be motivating and really high energy? Is that going to change? Are people going to think it's like one way, and then with the last clip, is that going to change? Is it going to be like ironic, or is it going to be humorous at the end? Okay. Here are some ideas that I came. Oh, go ahead.
Can we like use any music we want?
You're not going to use music at all. You're not going to record any sound other than what's in that clip at the time.
So what if you like do like a voice, like a sound effect? Like say you have an app on your phone, and you make like a sound
Nope.
effect. No.
You got to tell the story with just the basics.
Okay.
Okay, focus on that.
Like even if we put it in a video, like background music?
No.
Oh.
Mm-mm, no background music. For a couple of reasons. First of all, copyright, obviously. But second of all, the focus of this assignment is how can you tell the story using just the bare minimum of stuff. Okay? So like if it's a sound like if you're in a scene where there is music playing, if you're like filming somebody driving a car or something like that and there's like music on or whatever, that's a little bit different than if you're adding music to a scene. And we'll talk about things like voiceovers and soundtracks and stuff like that with other projects, like we'll get into that. But for this one, kind of bare minimum. This is like our first video, that's kind of how it's designed.
Noise in the video, is that going to be in our video?
If there's extra background noise that you are not using for your video, like you don't want it there, then yes, it will be there and you have to figure out how to record without it. So for example, if I was going to do that idea where like the sick day one, right, and I was going to film, I was going to stand in the middle of the hallway and film people, and like somebody walked down the hallway and like swore real bad, like I can't edit that out. I'd have to reshoot that clip. Does that make sense? So yeah, be aware of what is being picked up by your camera's microphone, okay? So here were my ideas, and this is the kind of thing where, at least in my experience, maybe yours will be different, but in my experience I was like, wow, this is kind of hard to think of ideas. Like when I first sat down and I kind of looked at some examples and I wasn't really jazzed about any of them. And then I sat down to think about it and I was like, oh, this is really hard. And then the more I kind of just like started writing down even like the ones that I thought were crappy ideas, the more that all of a sudden it just kind of rolled and I was like, oh, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. I was in the middle of writing down one idea and then like 3 other ideas would happen. So don't give up on that process because the beginning does feel kind of rough, okay? So here are my ideas. Some are weaker and stronger than others for sure. I thought about life of a wedding photographer. So in other words, to show the idea that a wedding day is really fast-paced, you're corralling and directing a lot of people, and then you're waiting for people to eat. And then you get awesome moments when like you get the shot and like, you know, the couple is like really happy and you show them the back of the camera and it's super awesome. And then you like get home at the end of the night and you have thousands of images. That is feeling like very overwhelming. And then you open an email the next day and the bride's like, when am I going to see my images? And you just feel like, ugh, like, wow, I need a minute, you know. So that was kind of my idea there. I thought about the idea of like from a student's perspective, right? School is boring, right? That's how students feel from time to time. I'm sure you could relate. So the idea of that one would not be the like juxtaposition of back and forth, but it would be more like the harmony one, kind of repetition from class to class. So you might have 4 or 5 clips of like the same like have somebody sit down and put their backpack on the floor, take out a pencil, like that kind of repetition to show that that's happening at multiple points in the day and that it's so similar. That would help kind of tell that story. I thought about one about the power of technology. So just the idea of like different close-ups of like different forms of technology, different devices, different screens, being able to make payments with technology, showing the capabilities of like one small device. So like I could, pull out my phone, which is pocket-sized, and I could, make a reservation. I could order, something real. I could buy a car from my phone, right? I could communicate with somebody in another country, like just that kind of thing. These are all brainstorms, by the way, right? So just because you kind of write it down and you kind of play around with that idea doesn't mean that you're, committing to that structure right away. I thought about one kind of going opposite, right? I thought about the idea of like a little kid playing hopscotch, like very innocent, playful, fun, drawing the chalk lines, tying the shoes, bouncing the ball. Isn't there a ball in hopscotch? Don't you like bounce a ball or something and you have to go to that square? I might have to Google that.
You toss rocks.
Yeah, you toss the rocks. Okay, good. So that should be rocks. Doing the actual hopping, you could do different angles of that. And then for the ending one, to put the camera down low and then jump over it and then have the end of that clip be before the landing happens. So then you would just see from the audience, from the viewer's perspective, you'd see them kind of just jump and then that would be the end. Okay? Is this kind of making sense? All right. Here's some more ideas. So the idea of like social life, so different forms of social media and how we use them, be it phone, watch, computer, all sorts of stuff. Showing somebody with a group of friends, like actually in person, showing adult colleagues at like a meeting or around the water cooler, right, stereotypical, crowds at an event or at a mall or something like that, and then like for like a twist ending, some sort of like message where plans were canceled and then you like stay home and like, put on your pajamas and wear your slippers or whatever. I thought about one about the weekend, so the idea of like just a sequence, like Friday leaving work or school, driving home, watching TV, doing something outdoors, reading books, family, some sort of family gathering. I thought about like fishing or something like that. I liked the idea of making memories, so this one kind of like with prom coming up, that's kind of where I got that inspiration. So like going shopping for things, getting shoes on, putting makeup on, getting hair done, opening the door to leave, getting pictures taken, like that whole sequence. And then the sick day one that I told you about already. Okay? This is just like, if I was doing this project, this is where I would start. This is kind of how I would brainstorm and how I would start to just kind of play around with and develop those ideas. I wanted to show you that process. Does that make sense? Okay? Do you feel like this is something that you could do? Okay. Once you kind of get through that brainstorm phase, okay, once you kind of narrow it down to like, okay, these are my ideas that I know I want to use, then you're going to refine that process a little bit and you're going to do a storyboard, okay? So if you've had an art class before, you obviously know what thumbnail sketches are. That's like your plans where you play around with different visual ideas for your design, okay? For film, you storyboard your plans first, okay? So the idea here is you're going to do, for each of your 5 segments, okay, you're going to do a little sketch of what that might look like, okay? Very rough, stick figures, stuff like that, okay? I'm not looking for highlights and shadows or anything that's a good drawing. I'm looking to see, like, are you planning out your visuals? So if it's a close-up shot, it should look like a close-up shot. If it's a wider shot, it should look like a wider shot. And so you're going to create a quick sketch to visualize your plans for each of those 5 scenes. What you may do, if you design like me, is you may have 7 or 8, right? And then you kind of rearrange them, or you narrow down, or you try out different combinations of them and see how they flow until you get one that you like, okay? Then you can kind of pare down to the eventual 5. Like I said, you're going to create several different options, then pare down once you can evaluate them all together. But the idea is that you need to have a plan on paper before you start filming anything. Does that make sense? Okay. Questions on that? I think that's So do you get a sense of kind of what we're expecting, of how to do it, of what that's gonna look like when it's done-ish? Okay? Now, speaking of when it's done, and normally I wouldn't give you this many directions at once, but I'm not gonna be here, so I want you to understand. Once you film, okay, so you're gonna brainstorm, then you're gonna storyboard, then you're gonna film once you have your storyboard. And honestly, I have filmed both with and without a storyboard. It is so much easier to use a storyboard when you film because it can be so overwhelming with all the settings and making things happen. When you have your storyboard, some people will call it a shot list in the industry. It's like a to-do list. You can just kind of knock it out and check them off the list, and then you've got what you need. Okay. It's also really good for kind of communicating with, if you're working with other people. You don't have to have other people in your film, but you may. Once you film, okay, you know that they're going to be 5-second clips eventually, but remember, we're going to start early and we're going to end late. So you might be filming like 10-second clips, right? And then you can kind of trim down to that 5 so you have control over that. You're going to upload those to WeVideo, okay? Then you're going to use WeVideo in that timeline view to kind of put your clips together. If you don't know how to do that, find a tutorial. Okay, WeVideo has some. You could obviously Google others. I know many of you have used some video editing, even if it's just on your phone before, so I'm sure that you have kind of some sense of it. But we'll use this as a learning experience, okay? It's going to be a little slow, that's okay. Normally I would be here to help you with that. In this case, I won't be next week, but we'll get through it. Do not press finish on that video, okay? So get it up to that point where you think like it's exactly how I want it, it's as good as it's gonna get ready to hand in, but do not press finish. Then after I get back, week after next, I will have you guys, I'll give you more specifics about how to put on your title so that they're all consistent. If you have, some people sometimes have like bloopers and stuff they wanna put on the end in the credits if you wanna do that. We'll go through the specifics of that, and then we will kind of export and finish those all together. Does that make sense? Question?
So each clip is going to be like 5 seconds and like 25 seconds.
Yes. So it's 5 clips. Each clip is 5 seconds. So your whole video is going to be 25 seconds, and you're going to do 2 of those, right? One in school, one out of school.
Do they have to be 45 seconds?
It should be, yeah. When you trim it, you'll be able to see how long your clip is. Like it should give you like an actual number, so you can like move the little slider until you get to 5 seconds.
We're making 2 videos?
You're making 2 videos.
Oh.
So 2 5x5s. One in school, one out of school. Any other questions? Good. Then I will let you guys get working. Mm-hmm. Are you talking about like within the same video, within the same 5x5, or like one 5x5 about getting ready for school? Oh, so like 2 5x5s, so like a 5x10. Yes, you can have the 2 videos relate if you want to, and you can have them go into sequence, but they don't have to. That's a good question.
All the time, so